The Mountain View Hotel at Oracle was formally opened by a grand ball. At midnight, supper was served. And what a grand supper it was. The dancing and hilarity continued until 5 o'clock in the morning, when the party dispersed, having spent a most enjoyable evening, wishing Mr. and Mrs. Neal success in their new undertaking.
The Mountain View Hotel, during its heyday, had a lot of visitors here. These were generally people of notoriety.
Buffalo Bill was the most famous at the Mountain View. Grady Gamage came here, who ended up being the president of ASU, and the stewards. And Lavinia Stewart ended up giving all the money for the observatory at the university.
As its name became known, its fame spread really literally throughout the world. They began getting international people. A couple ambassadors stayed there. You had Russian princes. You had Italian countesses. You had famous writers. You had the man who wrote The Mine with the Iron Door, Harold Bell Wright, who was the most famous author in the United States at the time. So it was not just a little out-of-the-way inn that people came to. It was very, very well known.
But what about the proprietors of this notable hotel? Who is behind this beautiful and famous destination in this rugged landscape? The year was 1895, and the Arizona Daily Citizen had this to say about the owners.
Mr. and Mrs. Neal have been residents of Tucson for the past 17 years, where for all that time Mr. Neal is one of the foremost and most progressive citizens we have, true as steel, and a man whose word is as good as bond. Mrs. Neal is one of the most charming, genial, and appreciative landladies who understands how to perform the difficult art of providing the best accommodations. This is wild. This is crazy. This is a black man on this page. I'm like, and they wrote that in the newspaper?
William and Annie Neal started from humble beginnings, a self-made man and woman whose success came despite many barriers. More than 120 years later, the Mountain View still stands today, providing a semblance of its former glory. Long gone are its sweeping two-story verandas, fine decor, and throngs of impressed visitors. A church chapel was added in the 1950s, and it continues to be used by a small group of worshipers. But much of the structure of the original building is unsound and remains unused, fading examples of its previous splendor.